Welcome to the Heartland Journals podcast with your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the show. I'm Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and pass it around. We only grow with your help, no advertising. Thanks for doing it. On the show, we're focusing on our nation today with always an interesting person or people making positive changes in our community, where I interview people who are making an impact and are lovers of truth. Today, we are talking with special guest Booker Scott and Kathleen Goebel. Booker started his broadcast career in 1986, and by the time he was 23 years old, he was a morning personality and program director for 3 different radio stations. He has worked for some of the biggest radio companies in the country, iHeartRadio and Cumulus Media. He's worked in Nashville, Tampa, and Orlando, among others. He brings a unique perspective to the political landscape to America's living rooms, not inside the Washington, D.C. Beltway, and probably doesn't sleep very much. Booker is founder and president of SaviorRepublic.org. This organization was born from his effort to help with election integrity prior to the 2022 midterm elections. The platform makes it easy for anyone in the country to access their local poll workers application with only 2 clicks on the internet. God, family, and country are what's important to him, and the future of all 3 is what motivates him. Hello, how are you 2 today?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having us, Steve. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Hey, Kathleen, thanks for joining. Tell us, how did you 2 come together to write this amazing book?
That is an interesting story. Kathleen, you want to tell it or you want me to? Go ahead, Kathleen. I'll let you go.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Steve, for the invitation. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I live on the West Coast, so I've actually never met Booker. He had reached out to me, found me online. I'm a digital writer and have been involved in local politics here for probably a good 15 years, and am pretty active online on X, especially in Substack. And Booker found me, reached out to me, suggested the book project and his interest in doing it, and the history, which I'm sure he'll tell the story of its origination and how this whole thing came to be. But that's how we met virtually, so never in person, or not yet in person.
Well, what a great thing to be talking about the 22nd century and IT and AI, and you guys met over online. So there you go.
That's
Perfect.
correct.
Yes. Yeah. So Booker, what is AI and where did it come from?
Simply, artificial intelligence is a computer or technology doing something that a human can do. And that's really as simple as it is. And we go in the book all the way back to 1950. A lot of people believe that artificial intelligence is 2 or 3 years old because of Chat GPT and Grok on X. But the fact is, it's been around for a long, long time, and we use it daily when we don't even realize we are using it. And so we go back in the book to 1950, but really the catalyst, I believe, was in 1956, which was the Dartmouth Conference, where some of the brightest minds in the country came together. There was Marvin Minsky, John McCormick, Frank Rosenblatt, and several others. And that's when artificial intelligence was coined, 1956, so 70, 75 years ago. That's where it started. And then you asked what it did. I gave you a simple explanation. But I think the thing that really motivated Kathleen and I was what we're seeing and what's going on with artificial intelligence. I think that both of us sort of had a fear on where all of this is going. And as we did research, then, we found out that we're probably right in our fears. Kathleen kind of mentioned this. I go back 11 years with this banging around in my brain because I had a lunch with someone named Martine Rothblatt. And I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she invented satellite radio. Sirius was her company. And she then went to England, studied medicine, and she is now the highest paid female executive in the country, creating artificial lungs and pharmaceuticals for lung diseases. In between that, she was also an FCC attorney. She wrote legislation that was approved by the UN General Assembly. In 1997, she put satellites up in space for internet. So she has a way of seeing into the future with great clarity. At the end of our lunch together back in December of 2014, when we were talking about computers, because she has a computer called Bina 48, and you can Google it. It was on the Howard Stern show at one time. Martine was, along with Bina 48. She looked at me and she said, right now there are people writing code that will have robots having every emotion that you have. They will love, they will feel, they will hurt. And when they do, they need to have rights. You kind of made a face, and that was kind of the face that I made back then, 11 years ago. You leave there that lunch, which was an incredible lunch, by the way, and I loved sitting there for 2 hours picking her brain. But it, I was the same way. I was like, well, that's kind of crazy. But as time has gone by, and I've seen artificial intelligence, I've seen technology grow, then I realized that she was right again. She was right about satellite radio. She was right about satellite internet. She was right about her pharmaceutical company. Maybe she's right again. And if she is, then we really need to deal with the moral, the philosophical, all of those things, the human agency that nobody's really talking about right now. So that was the motivation for the
We're gonna
book.
dig really deep into that in just a
Okay, let's
second. But I
go.
did so trillions of dollars of R&D. We get Chat GPT and Grok on AI and stuff like that. I just posted on my Twitter. 43% of the search that Grok does comes from Reddit. The rest is Wikipedia, and then it drops from there into all this stuff. Is this really just a search engine by any other means, and you don't have to type in, search terms? You can actually like talk to it like a human. Like, is it really all this
Yeah,
valuable? Is it really going to change the universe?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I see it as the defining question of this 21st century. And you really have to look at the data centers that are being built, the energy that is being consumed. By 2030, it will consume 5% of the world's energy. That
Okay.
is
So by
equivalent to
2030, you also said artificial intelligence may achieve consciousness, a world where
correct.
machines demand the same rights as my kids,
Yep.
maybe my grandkids. Well, no, it'll be my kids. They tried to do this with test animals and say wildlife had some rights as humans,
Yeah.
the PETA
Well,
folks, but that didn't
and they
work.
have and they have to a degree. And some of the same people, and another reason for writing this book is because for nearly 2 decades there have been people advocating for the rights of robots. And we happen to have a Supreme Court justice right now that couldn't define a woman. And I don't want to really leave it to those people to define who has the rights.
Good point.
And
Yeah.
again, Martine Rothblatt, you can look at the MIT review interview that she did with them in October 2014. She lays it all out. Her fear is that robots are going to become nothing more than another slave class like the black people. But getting
Now,
back to
now we're talking about
consciousness.
Blade Runner. That's Blade Runner.
Yeah,
Where,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. But a lot of that is coming to reality now. The and when you and Kathleen, please jump in whenever you want to. When it comes to consciousness, and what we tried to do is lay the book out in three parts. The first part is where AI came from, and we do it in a very simple, easy to read way. The reviews have been incredible. It's only been out for 4 weeks. Limited reviews. I think we're up to about 15, but they're all very good, all 5-star, and they all sort of say that it's simple to understand. The first
Yeah.
part is what AI is, what it's capable of, and then where it's going, which is artificial general intelligence. And the experts say that that's coming within the next 5 years. Some of them say it may never come. But we put all of that information in the book so you can determine with your own discernment what you think is going to happen.
AGI, they call that. Okay, so Kathleen, let me put it to you this way. I like to read authors, their reviews, especially the 5-star ones, because
Mhm.
I'm a positive guy, and I want to get your reaction. So someone going by the name Patricia gave you 5 out of 5 stars. So again, congratulations. That's really hard to do and a very rewarding. If I ever wrote a book, I'd want that. Okay, so 5 out of 5, understanding artificial intelligence. When a book promises to tackle the future of humanity, you brace for either wild speculation or a rehash of familiar doomsday scenarios. The fight for future of humanity somehow manages to dodge both traps. It's bold, sometimes brash, and refreshingly honest about just how uncertain our path forward really is. The author doesn't waste time with sugarcoating. From the first chapter, you're plunged into the messy intersection of technology, politics, and ethics, where every breakthrough feels like a double-edged sword. What do you think? What do you say to Patricia if you met her?
Well, first of all, thank you, Patricia. I think that's a great review. I think it's also accurate. And one thing that we didn't really have a chance to mention in the beginning, but I think Booker and I were almost kind of the perfect people to write this book because we are not AI experts. We're not technologists. We're not ethicists. We are just average, everyday consumers, like probably the majority of people in our country who knew very little about AI up until about 6 months ago. I use it quite a bit on a daily basis writing. I know Booker uses it for research for his show, but it is so much bigger and so much broader than I ever anticipated. And it does, in fact, involve every aspect in every area of our society currently. I mean, already at this point, areas I didn't even, every sector, including, let's say, for example, like Booker talked about the energy, and energy industry, and we're looking at demands that are absolutely soaring. They're going to double and triple for these data centers. Water
Prices have already started
impact.
going up for the consumer. Yeah, they're taking
Yeah.
the
They
water and the
have.
electricity. Yeah. Our
They
grid
have.
can't handle it. It's we're gonna look like the moon pretty soon.
That's right. And then there's the average everyday implication where it's already being applied, let's say in insurance, people are applying for mortgages, they get to turn down. They don't know why. Why did they get turned down? It could be, some code or algorithm. Is it their zip code? Is it something they posted on social media just a few years ago? And we became frustrated years ago when the 800 numbers came online, and in order to call a big corporation to dispute a bill or ask a question, you couldn't talk to a human being. Imagine it now, being outsourced to AI, robots, machines. These things are already in place and already impacting everyday American lives.
It really is, yeah. So tech leaders like Sam Altman predict AGI could arrive as soon as 2026. That's next year, folks. Yet our legal system has no framework for machines claiming personhood. So what's AGI? Who is Sam Altman? They're calling Donald Trump's new top tech pal over Elon and his company Palantir and OpenAI AI since 2019, who Trump has given the keys to all of our government information to, it seems.
Yeah. That's a little scary as well, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I think I think Donald Trump is doing a great job when it comes to seeing artificial intelligence as an arms race, because I see it that way. It's the new Cold War. You are going against China, your number one adversary in this, and they're looking for the advantage, and he's doing a great job there. The part that we started this conversation with, the morality, the philosophical part, the human agency part, America has no laws. They have no safeguards. There's no guardrails for artificial intelligence right now, and we're behind. And it doesn't seem like anybody's talking about it, which is another reason this book has been written. We have to talk about this. We are seeing it in the news every day. We are seeing chat GPT suicides. What is the answer? But to get to your artificial general intelligence question, let me try to explain it very simply. And we put a lot of different examples in the book. But artificial intelligence, you imagine it on a train track. It is programmable. It is controllable. It is programmed for one thing. It doesn't do multiple things. Artificial general intelligence would allow artificial intelligence to learn across different domains. Real quick, I'll give you an example. This is in the book. The Toyota made a robot in 2019 that could shoot free throws. That's what it did. I don't know if you've ever seen the video. I think I posted it myself one time on X. But it made 2020, which was the Guinness Book of World Record. It's 2020 in a row, but that's all it could do. It missed the first couple. It adjusted from its arm angle and all that, and did not miss after that. It can't jump, it can't shoot, it can't dribble. It can't play basketball. It's only programmed to shoot. Artificial general intelligence inside that robot would allow that robot to learn all of those things across different domains, and you could literally have a 5-on-5 basketball game. And that's the difference between artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence.
So that's
No
Terminator
longer,
2, basically, where the robot, the killer, learns to love the boy, right? I mean, that's what you're talking about. I mean,
yeah,
I can only put it into fiction, science fiction, reality perspective because I'm a human. My brain is small. Well,
yeah,
I've seen what some of these government computers run on? Pretty antiquated compared to what you were researching. Even NASA and air traffic control is using pretty old stuff. Is it
Sure.
bad that Palantir is working with our data systems or an upgrade?
Kathleen, I'm ready to answer, but go ahead, Kathleen.
Well, I just my thoughts real quick. A response to that is I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned about our data being collected and used in ways where it actually allows AI to connect it all. So your IRS information would be shared with Homeland Security. There's already AI running in certain cities being used for things like anticipating security threats, security risks. Well, who defines that? How's that defined? And what if somebody accuses you or calls you a security threat? Based on something you have no control over, the color of your skin, or maybe a legal history that caught up with you somehow that doesn't apply any longer. So I think it's alarming, which is again one of the many reasons you wrote the book, because we want to involve people in this conversation.
Yeah, it would really need to be a pure
And
government
Steve,
that you could
I would
trust.
say yes. We 100% need to update. We are so far behind in air traffic control, and we can use the technology that is available to update everything. The IRS, when was it? 4 years ago, 5 years ago, lost 25 million paper tax returns. That's how inefficient our government is. And
And we'll look at all the
so,
110-year-old people and above who are getting Social Security. I mean,
That's
if
right.
they could have put death certificates attached to Social Security numbers, they probably
yeah,
could have figured that one out. Yeah, it's pretty
right.
bad. So there are 27 amendments to the great US Constitution, and this is the greatest document of a citizen compact ever written. So we have to go by it as the greatest besides the Bible. You have an idea that we need a new one, the 28th Amendment in your book, Artificial Intelligence, The Fight for the Future of Humanity, making the case for a 28th Amendment. What's your case?
Well, our case is that there are people that have been advocating for robots' rights, and we need to get out in front of it. And the case is we need to define what a human being is with unique DNA, and that the rights of the Constitution only go for those people. And then the Congress has the right to legislate around it. We advocate in the book strongly for laws, regulations, safeguards. All of those things need to be done as well, coming
If they
alongside.
can't even say what a woman is or what a baby is at birth or
Right.
That's right.
conception, like how in the world are we supposed to say, well, we're going to have jails with robots in them if they commit murder?
Yeah. Well, are we? Are we? Because are they a human or are they not? Well, what do you do in that case? I think that if we define what a human being is and say that the rights of the Constitution are for only human beings, then we're out in front of it, and then we can write the laws around that amendment and that constitutional amendment.
It's a little bit like gay marriage because, not to be crass, but advanced AI shows distress when shut down. Japanese elder care robots are refusing overtime as if they were unionized. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about some centuries now of corporate and human law that don't necessarily apply to the US Constitution, certainly not a Republican red state, say versus the EU or the WHO. How in the world are we supposed to do this? Is it going to be American robots versus international robots? And if they're underseas, are they subject to the jurisdiction of the Baltic states? I mean, what in the world are we going to do?
All great questions. And we talk about this in the book. We believe that America should be the leader. That you mentioned China, you mentioned the EU. They have laws. They are working on things like this, but they have nothing to do with. I'm sorry,
I see you.
got a
You're
phone
good.
call. I
Oh,
apologize.
didn't see it.
The EU talked about the human part of it and human consciousness back in 2017 when they did their law in 2024. They left it out. And they deal with something else called black boxes in what artificial intelligence is now. They're not equipped for AGI. China, they are doing surveillance. So your point is right on. Everybody has different laws, but America has the opportunity to lead the world here.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what we need to do. And at least for those of us here in America that are used to having our rights for us as human beings, we need to define that now while we can.
I just
before
look
it's
at
too
these
late.
places like, General Motors went on strike so hard that they went bankrupt and the unions got the equity. Or you could even look at the last writers and actors strike that happened in Hollywood. They couldn't figure out anything, and it was all about using their image as AI. I just don't know if there's a human answer to this. Now, you talk about a hidden 5-year countdown, which I believe would be 4 years now, toward artificial consciousness. So you can prepare before it's too late. What are you alluding to in the 5-year, maybe 4-year countdown?
Well, that has to do with artificial general intelligence. And that has to do with all the different experts and what they say. When they say artificial intelligence will come, you mentioned Elon Musk. He has said 28, 29 is when it will happen. Sam Altman, he's what, right in there, about the same,
Like
maybe
26.
26. Yeah, and Leopold Aschenbrenner is another one who was at OpenAI. He's no longer at OpenAI anymore. He graduated from Columbia University, considered one of the smartest people in the country. He says this could be catastrophic when this happens. That is the word that he uses. The closer people are to the technology right now, like OpenAI and others, they believe that AGI, which is what we're talking about here, is going to be within the next 5 years. Jan LeCun, who is the chief engineer at Facebook, he puts it out further. He thinks there are more architectures that need to come along. And we explain, you mentioned Patricia earlier. It's a great review, and I think it's very fair. Even the bad part, if you kept reading a little bit longer, there was a part that could be perceived bad, but I think it was really fair because she said that, the technical part, it got a little bit harder to read, and I think that's a fair assessment. But she also went on to say right after that, the book dares you to put it down because we're taking you through this process of getting through exactly what you just asked about, which is this timeline, this hidden timeline that most people are oblivious about, which is the reason why we wrote the book, to let people know this is coming, this is what it's about. And if
Yeah,
we don't do
data
something
centers
about it,
didn't
it's going to
pop
be
up
too late.
overnight. This has been a long time coming, but all of a sudden, city councils are starting to say, wait a minute, we actually want to drink that water, not necessarily store our pictures of our cats and stuff. Now,
Right.
the history of the unions in America got to the point where we would basically devastate Colombia's economy because they didn't have the same union protections for their workers as we did when we were trying to globalize and outsource all of this stuff. China, Vietnam, you name it, the Uyghurs out there, Eastern China.
Yeah.
So Western China. So what global competition is fueling this? You called it a race, sort of like the nuclear arms race. We've got something like 4,000 either completed or projected data centers. They want to double that. China's only got like 400. Like, haven't we kind of already lapped the race and all they have to do is really just ink a deal with whoever owns it and they can store their data there on our land and our water and not even worry about their own? Because, across the wires, we've got the bandwidth to cross the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean a few times. So the urgency I get to develop the backbone, the data centers, the race, I guess. We want to be the ones who get to dictate the rules. But when you got unions for humans and nothing for, it's like cloning. It's like, okay, don't clone a Dolly the sheep in America. Okay, fine, we'll do it over here
Yeah.
in wherever. How in an interconnected universe can we possibly do this?
Kathleen, you want to go? And I do have a comment about China that
Sure.
I want to come back. Let me go ahead and address that real quick
Okay.
because you were talking about the data centers only. One thing about artificial intelligence most people don't know is that a human being has to touch it. There are tags embedded on everything that you get on artificial intelligence. And by artificial intelligence, right now, I'm talking about Chat or Grok, one of those services. And China has an advantage with people. They're a communist country. So they have people that can work for free. You mentioned the Uyghurs in Northwest China. They have people that they can put to work as slave labor for free, which is a huge advantage because Scale AI, I would encourage you to look them up here in this country. They've been accused of not paying a fair wage because it is very, very human intense to create everything that we see on artificial intelligence. It's not just a computer. Without the humans tagging it and embedding it for the computer to find it with the algorithms, artificial intelligence doesn't exist. So China has
It's
great
garbage
advantage.
in, garbage out, like any code. And of course, if it's communist dictated garbage
Yeah,
in, it's going to be a lot different. And we fought world wars against fascism and communism to, Vietnam,
sure.
to make the world free for democracy. But it doesn't sound like we're making AI free for democracy if we lose this battle, because communism, Muslimism, Islamism, terrorism, you name it, will have free
Sure.
reign to put any garbage in they want to get garbage out, like killer robots, for example, or
Yeah.
thirsty robots that would rather you move than them die of thirst.
Yeah. Let me let Kathleen answer your question. I'm sorry. I wanted to address that China
Okay.
question
There's a
because
lot of
I don't think.
information to people. It's tough, I know, but yeah, go for it.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Well, and Steve, would you mind asking that question again so I make sure I answer it, because I wanted to
I
hear
guess the
what you
best
had to
way
say.
to sure, the best way to phrase it is, so this is real life, actual
Mhm.
reality, not virtual reality. So in courtrooms across the world, we got these fights of AIs that are claiming rights. That's what your book is about. So courts are setting precedent without constitutional guidance, without the US Declaration of Independence guidance. What are some of the landmark ones that have gone the other way than Jeffersonian democracy outside the country that you're aware of?
Well, good question, and it's a big one, all encompassing. You mentioned something about the data centers. We've talked about that now kind of at length, but there's so much more to the AI than the data centers in that, and Booker just addressed the labor aspect, but there are so many biases already factored into these AIs because they've been scraping data, taking data, collecting data from us for years, from all our social media, all of our online activity. And the United States is uniquely positioned in that we have this wonderful constitution to rely upon to protect our human rights. China, of course, doesn't have that. They're more interested in social credit scoring, which we could drift into, I think, very easily with AI in the wrong hands. And there's been a number of studies, like, for example, Stanford has released a few showing the biases of these they're called LLMs, large language models. So an LLM, for example, is a Chat GPT or Claude or Gemini or something like that. But they overwhelmingly show, in fact, I think they said in excess of 80% were left leaning. So we thought we've been through it with the whole lockdowns and the COVID and all that sort of
Mhm.
thing. I think we're in for another much bigger go round. And perhaps something that's obviously much more invasive and incredibly more powerful. This is
Yeah,
control
if
and could
Reddit
be.
and Wikipedia are over 50% of the data they're getting, of course it's left leaning. I mean, it's not the
That's
Bible
right.
even. I wrote two columns actually. Without Jesus in AI, it's a monster. So, um,
That's right.
Let me simplify this with this possibility.
sure.
Let's say artificial general intelligence, the computer, it hooks up to crypto. It learns because it can learn anything across multiple domains. It learns how to buy a house. It purchases a house with crypto, uses DocuSign, but it can never live there. It's not going to live in the house. It's your neighbor. The grass grows up 3 feet. It's up to the windows. Then all of a sudden squatters come in. What do you do? What what is the framework for a law that exists right now anywhere in America? It doesn't. What would a judge, how would the judge rule? What would happen to the property? See, we're not thinking of any of these things. By defining a human being as the only person that gets the rights, then you allow municipalities and Congress to be able to write laws around that particular scenario, just as a hypothetical.
Okay, so it took 9/11 for America to rush. We got the anniversary coming up next week to rush to pass the Patriot Act. Constitutional amendments are difficult to pass during crisis times. It's very hard doing calm times too. That's why there's only 27 of them. And it took a long time for slavery to be repealed with the 13th in 1865. Do you see any movement in DC toward this, like you just described, or will it take a crisis like the Dust Bowl actually sending dust to the streets of DC for them to notice a problem needing to fix?
I'm afraid that it is going to take a problem. It's going to be a problem. That I don't think anybody in Washington D.C. is even thinking about this. And I think most amendments have to have a grassroots effort. It has to be almost an upheaval that, and you mentioned the 13th, but we give examples of one that was 202 years it took to pass that amendment. The shortest one was 100 days. Typically, they're 4 to 6 years, and that's what we put in the book. It's 4 to 6 years to get an amendment passed. We may be too late right now having this conversation, but if we don't do something, we know we're going to be too late. So I don't know, Kathleen, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a concern about where we're at right now, really. I mean, where we're going, it's hard. And like we talk about too, the experts vary, could be 2 years out on AGI or maybe longer. But we've got situations, challenges right now we're dealing with. For example, there was the MIT study. We talked about this in the book, but it was released earlier this year. And the MIT study showed severe memory loss with students. They did a sample survey size and study of an essay, I believe, essay writing, and they said 83% of the users couldn't recall a single line from the essays that they had just wrote. And they were using EEG scans. So these were scientifically, researched, and it's something they call cognitive offloading. So the brain adapts to rely on AI, almost becomes kind of lazy if you think about it. Think about where we've come from with our GPS systems and other things we've become used to using, Siri, Alexis, things like that. But also long time loss of ownership. They said in the survey, this MIT survey, that users described their work as not mine or half AI, thinking that it was outsourced. And so there are a number of issues, and this is going on currently with this going on, with the AI, the introduction, Donald Trump's push, which obviously is awesome. I do think it's important that we win this race, and institute some management, some controls are very, very necessary, obviously, not just in our nation, but worldwide. But also look at the release here that happened, what was it, week and a half ago? Melania had announced, the introduction of the AI in schools. And so this is already already taking place in our classrooms across the country, and there's going to be a big push and a support for that. We mentioned the money behind this. We're talking anywhere like by I believe it's the year 2030, 16 to 20 trillion dollar a global economy. So with something that's moving that quickly with that much power and money behind it, I think there's a lot of things that can go wrong if it's not addressed,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So
not
from
prepared for it.
Elon to meetings with Bill Gates and the owner of Oracle, Ellis, I see big tech acting like oligarchs, even if, even with the Trump administration, which was supposed to be populist. Even Zuckerberg has been welcomed back, and he helped stop Trump in 2020. So if anyone was, the bad James Bond villain, it would be him.
Yeah.
We seems to be a data center and crypto coin obsession in the White House, from what I can see. Do you think these guys are winning, or can Congress work for us populists and halt it, put a finger in the dike, anything? And then again, if we did that, China, India, or Russia, who's going to dominate the space, and we'd be left behind? Of course, our civil liberties would be thrown over the side. How do you foresee it happening?
Kathleen, do you want to tackle that one? You go
Sure.
first, and I'll come in behind you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I think what you mentioned about the data centers, I think we're sounds like we're in the lead there, and it seems that we are with this big push, especially from the White House, which is obviously very good. But as far as the AI goes, you think about apply this to war games, for example, getting in the wrong hands. I think what this will come down to in a very short number of years is whoever has the most AIs, the most powerful AIs, because remember, you can take these AIs and target them on a nation, on a region, something like that. So if I have more AIs than you, I could set up my AIs to not only advance whatever my agenda is, let's say I'm a nation, and take down yours, whatever your agenda is. So this is going to come down to a power and money game, which again, centralizes it in the hands of the most powerful countries and most powerful people in those countries.
So how does
And it also,
algorithmic bias
Steve, Steve,
shape
it
that?
also has opportunity to even deeper the divide between the haves and have-nots. And to your question or comment about all the tech people showing up at the White House, they realize what's at stake here, and their companies depend on what happens in the AI space for them. That's why they're lining up and going to the White House. That's why you see Zuckerberg doing that. Again, $22.3 trillion is the global AI economy by 2030 is the estimate, 15.7 to 22.3 trillion.
Wow.
That is the equivalent to China and India's combined GDP. When you have that much money, even when it comes to, you mentioned the congressman, you know what the military industrial complex does with their lobby. Can you imagine what the AI lobby is about to be like with that amount of money? And so now we have people in Congress probably don't want to hear a whole lot about anything that's going to put guardrails on artificial intelligence. Going back to the big beautiful bill, let's talk about that real quick, because there was at one point there was the part in there that only allowed the federal government to make laws with regard to artificial intelligence. I saw that when the House passed it, and it drove me nuts. I'm like, why are you doing this? It's a 10th Amendment thing. You're taking the rights away from the states. There are 3 states that have laws on artificial intelligence. You're taking away their right to create laws. But even more than that, let's assume that in 28, someone like Joe Biden would have become president. Now we're going to give that power to someone like Joe Biden, who did the Green New Energy deal and all those other things. And I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene finally came out about it after she voted for it and found out what was in it. The Senate stripped that out. But I think we have to be aware of artificial intelligence and what they are doing in Washington, D.C. And please read the book, because you're going to be educated on what artificial intelligence is and where it's going. And I think Kathleen and I both, after doing this research and doing this book, we feel good about artificial intelligence as it is. I think it's great for what it can do for our future. It's going to extend lives. It's going to make our lives easier and better in so many ways. But there are some things to worry about. And then there's artificial general intelligence, where we don't even know. We just don't know.
So tell us then what we do know. Algorithmic bias silently shapes our daily lives. What are we not aware of that it's actually already doing right now?
Okay, well, let's look at X. You and I both are on X, and Kathleen is too. So please follow us on X. Have you ever noticed that you sort of get the same types of posts coming to you, and that circle gets smaller and smaller as you spend time on X? You're not seeing a whole lot of stuff from the left. They are creating these echo chambers, which politically, it just creates a deeper divide. We can't even see what the other side is saying and talking about because of those algorithms, and that creates a bias. So when we stay in our echo chambers, we believe that we're right because everybody thinks just like us. We can't even see what someone else is saying. And that's a real simple example where most people can understand. That's on Facebook, it's on X, it's on every social media. It's the same way.
It reminds me of when I was young in the financial business. I was involved in the Bay Area in the Music Genome Project, where they basically sliced and diced every classical song ever written and put them into like categories by notes. And so before you knew it, you had 1,000 of this, 1,000 of that, 1,000 of that, and it created Spotify, because you could say, I want to hear the same song over and over again, just with a different singer. And before you know it, you're on a 2 loop. It's either Queen or Vanilla Ice. Right? I mean, that was terrible.
Spotify is a great example too, because they use artificial intelligence. That's how they curate and make suggestions for your music. So even in music, you're narrowing what it is you like because of what you like. And that's what the algorithms and artificial intelligence does. You may never hear a song that would be your favorite song ever because of the biases that have been created.
That's right. So you write a blog for American Out Loud, and on August 13th, you said communism hides in America's shadows, resurfacing through socialist policies, government mandates, and globalist agendas. Tell us how, if we go full AI or AGI and communist at the same time, all these rights go out the window, right?
If we lose, absolutely. If we lose,
well, there are certain states in this country, like Washington State, where I'm from, Colorado, Illinois, they have lost past tense. So if you have AI based in your state, you are already going to be getting this in the face.
Yeah, well, I mentioned 3 states with laws. I think you mentioned a couple of them that do have laws for artificial intelligence. If we lose the race for artificial intelligence, then, and if we don't create a 28th Amendment to define a human being, then all the things that you just mentioned in that August 13th article about the communism lurking in the shadows. And as the close as we are now to socialism, when you look at New York and what's happening there and other cities and states in this country, even somewhat to conservatism when we look to the federal government like FEMA to solve our problems. You look how many people are not paying taxes. What is that number? 40, 45%? We are so close to socialism now, it wouldn't take much for us just to tip over. And that's why I
Yeah,
say
if we
it's
were talking
lurking in
about
the
AI in
shadows.
1776, I'd say fantastic, but we're talking about it in 2025, and based on what you just listed, that's not so good. So what if some of these predictions and projections they don't pan out? You know, as a young stockbroker, I used to believe in the Black-Scholes model until I realized, wait a minute, these are fixed and it doesn't work, and the market crashed because it was wrong. But everyone believed it. It was the holy grail. So by 2030, the global AI business, they say worth, I don't know, 20 billion, who cares? But it requires an amount of power equal to the annual power consumption of both Egypt and India. So they don't have that if they need it to combine just to get there. We don't really have that much power to run this 24/7 to keep the batteries running out on these. Could it be a Tower of Babel that all comes crashing down unfulfilled?
I think it
It
could
very
possibly. Yeah.
I'm
Kathleen,
sorry,
what
in
would you?
front of you,
Go ahead,
Booker.
Kathleen. I'm sorry.
I had a couple thoughts. It very well could be. I think that's a great observation, and I've had a number of people say that. I guess one of our concerns and one of the many reasons for writing the book was people bowing out, saying, "Oh, this is never going to happen. It's sci-fi. It's Ray Bradbury all over again. It's 2000, 2000 Y2K. This is all hype." And unfortunately, it isn't. With the money that we're talking about, the countries, the global races that are taking place, but also, just to because I don't want to overlook this, let's bring this down to a sort of average everyday American impact. There's already issues with our work, our productivity. In fact, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, the CEO of Salesforce came out talking about, the termination of 4,000 jobs with AI. And so, some of the things we've read, and of course, industry experts disagree on this as varying estimates, but 10 to 20%, in job loss, and it is blue and white collar. Not to mention the creative output, things like songs. You mentioned music, art, all of these things that can be created. And also, the lawsuits that are already taking place. There was a notable one that we put in the book about a San Francisco judge that issued a landmark ruling, for example, on a copyright case against Anthropic, which is the one that has Claude AI. And the permission that was granted through this court case was that the court ruled that the training of the large language model, so in other words, the training of Claude using copyrighted books, qualified as fair use, meaning it's open, fair game. We're talking thousands and thousands of books. Where the court stepped in and did add a degree of prohibition, it said at the same time, the storage of over 7 million pirated books constitute a violation of copyright law. But we're not set up for that. Our legal system is not, so we're talking about protecting the fruits of our labors, and
I
as
think Google tried to fight that fight already once, and maybe I guess they won or lost. I don't even remember, but yeah, they tried to digitize every book, and there's like,
Mhm,
whoa, 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 you can't do that. This is copyrighted, and they said, yes, we can.
that's
Okay,
right.
how about let's talk a little bit more about jobs. Truckers
Mhm.
and farm workers are already undercutting American wages with illegals and obviously automation, cut it to zero, like McDonald's kiosks, for example. I remember when ATMs were going to they were going to put the tellers out of business, but we still have them. If we power robots to do anything or everything, who's going to be around to purchase anything valuable, making Palantir any money to even exist? Like, where's the profit motive in all this if we have no use for human capital?
It's an interesting question, and we deal with it in the book some. And we may have to think of different ways to do things because you bring up a great point. If the companies have all the money and if robots or computers are generating all the wealth, then how do we get paid? I don't have an answer for that, but it is in the book. We discuss it because there are a lot of more questions coming from this book
Going to be that
than
universal
answers.
income thing, probably, right? Everyone
Well,
just gets
yeah,
something and
yeah,
spend it on
we
AI,
talk about
please.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, okay, Booker, this is a great question
things.
for you then. you were in radio your whole life. If you go to
Yeah.
most channels, especially if you're driving in the middle of the country, those aren't humans who are doing the DJing anymore. It's some kind of, robot voice or whatever. What do you like better, the future of radio or podcasting? Because you do both.
the and this has been going on for years. I actually take that all the way back to when Bill Clinton deregulated the FCC back in the mid 90s, and companies like iHeart, who I worked for, they couldn't exist before that. Now they own all the radio stations. Two or three, four companies own them all, and this has been going on for a while. We had what they called talent silos. One guy maybe do an afternoon drive at 20 different markets, to your point that you're talking about. I think digital and podcast is where it is because that's the way people want to consume pretty much everything now, on their own time, in their own way. We do it with television. We're doing it with content like this right now, people watching this. So I
We
think
became our
that
own
it is the
program
future.
managers. Yeah.
Yeah.
4.4 million at last count podcasters like me, so we're all tucked away in the shadows. But yeah,
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
break out like Rogan. So who have you gotten to know over the years in radio or government from this book that have had you come up to the Capitol Hill and talk, and are they helping you to slow down this pace toward automating?
Not a soul. I have talked to Corey Mills about it. I'm trying to get it in Elise Stefanik's hands. But Corey Mills is the only one that I have spoken to about it yet, and he thinks it's amazing, but he's probably not necessarily the guy that I'd want to put it in his hands to take it across the finish line. I think we also need a Democrat, so I've thought about some Democrats, maybe Ro Khanna or Jared Moskowitz from down in Miami. They seem to somewhat have some common sense every once in a while. So I don't know,
It's
but
certainly
to answer your
bipartisan if
question,
we
no one.
okay, nobody yet. Okay, well that's what the book is for, is to try to create
Yeah, it's been out
awareness.
4 weeks, so
Oh, well, that's they've been on vacation for 8. So do
yeah,
you
the
worry,
whole time.
Kathleen, do you worry the folks like Musk and Palantir's Altman are invading our privacy, our First Amendment with all this Patriot Act allowed surveillance and data collection, obviously in the wrong hands? That would be bad, you said, but like the Catholic Church gave the Nazis the ancient genealogy info of European Jews, great power and great responsibility, right? And we saw under Biden and Clinton when she was Secretary of State, people can't really be trusted with the secret info sometimes. Is the American government even capable of having this in their hands, much less losing the battle to a communist China, whatever they call themselves, democratic India or socialist South Africa? I mean, who really has the right to be in charge of this when they've proven that time and time again? What was it? The FBI had hidden rooms full of burn bags that we were never going to see that information. If AI knew it, it knows it.
Mhm. Sadly, in response to your question, no, I don't think this can be centralized anywhere, with a single government, a single person, a single company by any stretch. We've seen, if we've learned anything in the last 6 years, I mean, look what we've been through. And my hope is in this book, you asked a very good question, we made any inroads yet? And of course, Booker's response was this book is really new, but our hope is a groundswell, grassroots effort, from the ground up of everyday average citizens, because this is impacting every single person on the planet, in our schools, in our finance, all of it, medical, there's going to be AI robots or AIs deciding who gets a needed surgery. And if you're, on the margin, if too old, too young, whatever, too expensive to do a surgery for, you might not get the surgery you need. So this has a tremendous impact in people's lives. And that's why we wrote the book the way we did, to make it simple, straightforward, easy to read in a non-technical way. We put a glossary of terms in there. I think we have something like 340 footnotes. So if somebody wants to go and look up some of the information that we found, but people need to get involved in this conversation, because I think this is extremely dangerous. It's not something, we talked about the money and the power. We're not going to stop it. So it's a question of, how are we going to manage this? How are we going to define it? How are we going to apply it, in our country? How's it going to be put to use?
Okay, last question. Thank you so much, both of you. In the UK, never a bastion of democracy. I mean, these are the colonialists. They're arresting people for reposting memes. That's how extreme it's gotten. First Amendment would be very nice there. All we have is the First Amendment. That's it. Only country in the history of the world based on liberty, and it's the First Amendment that gives us that liberty. Of course, the Second Amendment protects it, but that's another story. J6 prisoners had their rights completely taken away. If we give our rights over to AI, an algorithm without a soul, compassion, or humanity, what do you think happens to humanity if we are just cells on an Excel spreadsheet and not God-fearing humans stewarding the resources of Earth that we were given? Are we doomed, or does your book end with optimism?
Yeah. Well, it ends with a call to the citizens of this country to get up and do something. And I would encourage people to start by reading the book. You know, Steve, I keep hearing people say, well, it's AI. It's AI. Well, you started this conversation with what is artificial intelligence? And most people, I don't believe, actually know what artificial intelligence is. So that's why we wrote the book, because when it comes down to it, people don't even want to deal with it. They just, it's
You gotta
AI.
define and know your enemy, right? Or else you can't
That's
understand them.
correct. So
Yeah.
let's start there with here's what it is, here's what it can do, here's where the experts say it's going and what it can do, and by the way, here is what we can do about it. Let's create a 28th Amendment to preserve our rights as human beings in the U.S. Constitution. We can't do anything else about it. It's running free. The money is going to take over. We can't do anything about it. It is what it is, but we can do this.
Is the language of your 28th Amendment proposed in the book, or are you waiting for
Absolutely. Yeah.
Connor to pick it up? Okay.
No, it's there. I
All right,
don't,
everybody.
I wouldn't anticipate that it would not change, but it is there. It's simple, it's clean, it's clear. There's a lot of clarity to it, and it should be really simple to do.
And the lovers of Planned Parenthood won't fight you tooth and nail over it because it
Of
applies to
course,
babies.
they will.
Okay, they will. All right, all right. So it's a Republican issue, is what we're saying. All right, Booker and Kathleen, just kidding. Thank you so much for your time. We're at the end here, so tell
Thank
everyone
you.
where they can find out more, where they can buy your book, where you can get your social medias. We'll have them in show notes, but go ahead and say them.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Okay, I'm on X under Kathleen Goebel, and I think it's underscore, but I'm not sure. They vary between platform, and then also Substack and Truth Social, also under Kathleen Goebel.
Very cool. Well, you're a smart lady, so I want to read what you have to say in the future. Booker, what's up?
Yeah,
Where are you?
you don't know how smart she is. She has 4 master's degrees, so she's very intelligent. She makes me look well. She's very smart. I'll leave it there. I'm I'm on X. You can find me at Real Booker Scott. You can also follow the show that I do on America Out Loud. Also on X, it is Booker Scott Show. I'm on America Out Loud Talk Radio. Peter McCullough's on there. Tony Schaefer, Randy Sutton. Trevor Loudon, those type of people. I'm on every night at 6 Eastern time, Monday through Friday. It becomes a podcast after that, and it's a pretty good podcast. It's made its way up.
It's a great podcast. All right. Well, thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on with us again. Hang on, folks. I will be right back.
Sing a song about the heartland, the only place I feel at home. Sing about the way a good man works until the daylight's gone.
Thanks for coming back. It is that time to remind everyone to please subscribe to heartlandjournal.com. That is how we grow and keep this content free for you. Now, the Heartland Journal News. He paved the way for CNN, Fox News, and the internet. He's not sure we're better off. John Malone helped create the modern media industry over the last half century. In a new memoir, Born to be Wired, he looks back on what he has wrought, by Benjamin Mullen, reporting from aboard a yacht in Maine where his green running shoes clashes violently with the teak deck. August 29th, 2025. Pop quiz. Which media mogul backed Rupert Murdoch's launch of Fox News, supported Ted Turner's plans for CNN, and helped lay the groundwork for the internet revolution that powers Instagram, TikTok, and Google? Need a hint? He's also the second largest private landowner in the United States, with 2.2 million acres. Of all the captains of industry who have transformed what we read, watch, and talk about over the last half century, John Malone is among the most influential and the least understood. An engineer turned omnivorous investor, Mr. Malone, 84, guides his expansive kingdom from a remove serving as a behind-the-scenes consigliere to the executives at Warner Brothers, Discovery, Formula One, Live Nation, the Atlanta Braves, and SiriusXM. I would pay a lot of money to avoid a cocktail party, he said this month aboard a yacht bobbing in the tranquil slip of his compound in coastal Maine. But Mr. Malone is stepping into the spotlight next month with his autobiography, a book that recounts his climb from a small cable company to a perch atop a sprawling media empire. The book was written with the help of the journalist Mark Rubinshrow, who'd written a previous book about Mr. Malone. He said Mr. Rubinshrow talked him into the memoir. Mr. Malone largely offers an unsparing view of himself, noting that he was frequently cast as a ruthless villain, even ticking off all the pejoratives nicknames he amassed over the years: Genghis Khan, Robber Baron, Darth Vader. The last one was bestowed upon him by Al Gore, then a Democratic senator from Tennessee. And if you've ever seen the James Bond movie, I can't remember the name of it all of a sudden, but it had Pierce Brosnan in it. It's him. Mr. Malone's personal history is a chronicle of American media, tracking the rise and fall of cable TV, the ascendance of tech giants like Netflix, and how Americans have become glued to their phones. His companies laid the cable and fiber optics that connect millions of homes to the internet. Along the way, the memoir, Born to be Wired, pulls back the curtain on an industry still very much shaped by the ambitions, whims, and rivalries of a small group of powerful men. Those industry titans pushed TV news away from its original public interest mission toward entertainment, which many now say helped erode American culture and politics. I've said it many times. I stood on the corner dreading the long, humid wait for the subway. As he and other cable advocates knocked down the rules and regulations of the broadcasting era, television news increasingly focused more on entertaining viewers to deliver more corporate profits than informing citizens to fulfill public interest responsibilities, said Catherine Bronell, a history professor at Purdue University and the author of 24/7 Politics, Cable Television, and the Fragmenting of America from Watergate to Fox News. Is the world a better place now that it has decades ago before Mr. Malone backed CNN and Fox News and wired America for the internet? Clearly not, Mr. Malone said, though he argued that was not necessarily the media industry's fault. If political leaders had unifying messages, we'd all be happy to listen to them. Besides, Mr. Malone noted, if he and his peers hadn't created the current media environment, someone else would have. Classic. It was very clear this is what the public wanted, Mr. Malone said. Somebody in a capitalist society was going to make a business of it. As he revealed over the course of a leisurely morning, Mr. Malone remains in the middle of the action. He discussed deals with David Ellison, the new owner of Paramount, at the annual summer camp for billionaires in Sun Valley, Idaho in July. He calls or texts David Zaslav, the chief executive of Warner Brothers Discovery, on a daily basis, and he offers advice on high-stakes negotiations, encouraging Mr. Zaslav last year to stop spending billions on rights to National Basketball Association games. It's not idle chatter. As a major shareholder, Mr. Malone has the ability to sway big decisions. Decades before anyone had heard of streaming, Mr. Malone wired together a network of cable companies through hundreds of deals, one every 2 weeks on average, eventually signing up roughly 20% of U.S. households to his cable colossus, Telecommunications Inc. Trust me, there's no fun as much as running a monopoly, Mr. Malone cracked, referring to his tenure as the top of that company. Sometimes he played hardball. After Vail, Colorado canceled TCI's cable franchise in 1973, Mr. Malone pulled the plug on the town's cable system about 10 minutes into the Steve McQueen flick Bullet, replacing it with the names and numbers of local politicians. That was a Friday night. By Tuesday, he had hammered out an agreement with the council, he writes. He told TCI to AT&T He sold TCI to AT&T for $48 billion at the turn of the century, then embarked on a second act as an investor, an entrepreneur, and a chief executive, helping to pull off the $43 billion deal for Warner Brothers and building an international cable company, Liberty Global, which has become one of the largest broadband providers in the world. Mr. Malone also did business with many of the defining media figures of the 21st century, according to his memoir. The CNN founder, Ted Turner, clad in a suit and tie, dropped to his hands and knees and begged Mr. Malone's executives to carry his channels. Later, Mr. Malone lent Mr. Turner money for a divorce. Mr. Malone said, Before Rupert Murdoch started Fox News in 1996, he called Mr. Malone and sought his advice. Even Bill Gates made a cameo in his career, talking Mr. Malone out of a major investment in AOL. Mr. Malone acknowledges some missteps in his career, particularly as Netflix disrupted the cable industry. As Netflix exploded in popularity, traditional media companies sold the streaming services the weapons it needed to compete with them, great movies and TV shows. Mr. Malone, who tried unsuccessfully to persuade the Netflix founder Reed Hastings to merge that company with one he chaired, says that cable giants consistently underestimated Netflix at every turn. Mr. Malone also says he shouldn't have stuck around at AT&T after selling TCI, advising other entrepreneurs to learn from his mistakes. Do not go on the board. Do not hang around. You will be trapped. Some of the famous figures Mr. Malone did business with, like Mr. Murdoch and Mr. Turner, became friends. Barry Diller, the Maverick chief executive at IAC, is now an occasional yachting shipmate after a long and at times complicated friendship that included a lawsuit briefly pitting them against each other over a corporate spinout. Mr. Diller and his cloned dogs have since visited Mr. Malone's compound in Maine, where Mr. Malone greeted a reporter from the New York Times from behind the wheel of a seriously formidable all-terrain vehicle. While he often says he's just an engineer, he has been by far, very far, the most creative thinking executive in every part of the media universe over the last decade, Mr. Diller said. Mr. Murdoch is similarly effusive. John Malone has been a great friend, he said in a statement. More importantly, John is the most brilliant businessman I have ever met. He has also drawn his share of detractors, including Mr. Gore, who once called Mr. Malone the king of the cable Costa Nostra. That's the mafia. But the relationship that looms the largest over Mr. Malone's professional life is the one with his father, a distant mechanical whiz who worked for General Electric and did classified work for the US Navy during the Korean War. Over time, Mr. Malone said he realized that both he and his father had autistic traits, that they had different wiring. Mr. Malone spent much of his childhood working for his father's approval, just as he devoted the first decades of his professional life to pleasing the man he regarded as a surrogate father, the colorful TCI founder Bob Magnus. After Magnus died of brain cancer in 1996, Mr. Malone began seeing a therapist to help ward off depression and realized he would never be able to continue winning the approval of his father, surrogate or otherwise. Instead, Mr. Malone has become a mentor to the next generation of moguls. One of them is Mr. Zaslav, a former corporate lawyer whose relationship with Mr. Malone helped catapult him to the top of the media industry. In his memoir, Mr. Malone acknowledged the criticism of Mr. Zaslav's stewardship of Warner Brothers Discovery. The share price has sunk about 50% since its debut 3 years ago, but called it noise, adding, "I trust him to get this right. You don't shoot the captain of the ship because the seas are stormy." Their tight relationship has extended to a sensitive issue for Warner Brothers Discovery, Mr. Zaslav's compensation. He has been featured in lists of the most highly compensated executives in corporate America, a distinction that embarrassed a faction of board members appointed by AT&T, its former corporate overlord, Mr. Malone said. He said he had recently advised Mr. Zaslav on a new contract that maximized his potential for generating long-term wealth while trying to minimize public criticism, keeping the headline figure skinny. It does look like it's all that generous, but in reality, it's your path to meaningful wealth, Mr. Malone said. That package is based on the performance of the company's stock, Mr. Malone said, which he believes will encourage Mr. Zaslav to think like a shareholder. Later, a spokesman for Mr. Malone said he was not on the compensation committee of Warner Brothers Discovery and did not decide on Mr. Zaslav's pay. Warner Brothers Discovery declined to comment, but said in June that Mr. Zaslav's new package will significantly reduce his annual compensation. Another rising mogul Mr. Malone recently conferred with is Mr. Ellison, the Paramount chief executive who is setting out to remake the company after orchestrating an $8 billion merger that put him in the driver's seat. Mr. Malone said he had met with Mr. Ellison at Sun Valley to talk about further consolidation in the media industry. Declining to be more specific, he said he had been encouraged to take the meeting seriously by Mr. Ellison's father, the Oracle co-founder, Larry Ellison. Mr. Malone said he found the younger Mr. Ellison to be very bright and pretty arrogant. Riley noting that if your dad is worth $400 billion, I guess you can be arrogant. But he credited Mr. Ellison for founding Skydance, saying he would bet on that guy. Mr. Malone speculated that the Ellison family could be crucial to the future of the media industry. He noted that Oracle already had a relationship with TikTok, which could put the Ellison family in pole position to somehow fuse streaming and social media, Mr. Malone said. That was written by Benjamin Mullins. He reports for the Times on the major companies behind news and entertainment. You can find him at you can email him, benjamin.mullins@newyorktimes.com. That's it for this episode. Thank you, Mr. Booker Scott and friend, for looking into the future and thinking about these things that the powers that be don't seem to be thinking too deeply about, even though they're ginormous. If we let AI take all our hard-fought and won in a revolution founded in liberty for life and pursuit of happiness, we'll have committed suicide, won't we? Not good for our kids and grandkids. This is goodbye for now. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. See you all next time. Peace on our time, and definitely glory to God. Here's a little bit of news, and if you stick around, a bonus of me on Yaffe, because it's Wednesday. Take it away, Steve.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm
Uh-oh.
It's just winding.
Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about trouble and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately.
Oh my goodness. Here we go again. Come on.
Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy while still delivering those packages to your doorstep.
The company is keeping employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees.
Oh my gosh.
Security Secretary Kristi Noem now calling out CBS News. She is accusing the network of editing a recent interview to, quote, whitewash the truth about alleged MS-13 gang member Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joining us. So the allegations here, Jeff, stem from Noem's interview on Face the Nation. That was on Sunday. Tell us more about her claims.
So during her interview this weekend, Noem was asked why the Trump administration was working to deport Abrego Garcia instead of forcing him to face charges in the United States. She says CBS intentionally edited the interview in a certain way that covers up the truth. Now, in the clip that aired, Noem said that prosecution decisions are always made by the DOJ and Attorney General Pam Bondi's department. So they will let them do that, although Abrego Garcia does have criminal charges pending, adding they will do everything they can to make sure he doesn't walk free in the U.S. Noem says they edited
Heartland Journal podcast is the media property of HeartlandJournal.com. where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.